How do you bring back one of the biggest sagas in movie history after, what, a decade of silence on the big screen? Especially, after a prequel trilogy that really left a lot of fans, well, divided. Did The Force Awakens feel like a return home to you? Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we unpack your sources, pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, and basically give you a shortcut to being really well-informed.
That's the goal. And today, we're diving deep into Star Wars. Episode 7, The Force Awakens, came out in 2015, felt like a huge moment.
Monumental.
And we'll be looking at how it really tried to live up to that title, a new hope for a new generation. We've got a good stack of sources, IMDb details, deep dives on Wikipedia, plus analyses of its impact, critical takes, all that stuff.
Yeah, the build-up to this film was just something else.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And it gave us these huge new characters, right?
Yeah.
Rey, Finn, Kylo Ren. Pivotal.
Totally.
And a lot of people saw it as this carefully orchestrated reestablishment, I think it's a good phrase for it, of the whole franchise.
It really felt like that. Like they were trying to thread that needle between honoring the legacy, but also, moving things forward.
And the box office.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that. It just exploded. So beyond the money, what else are we digging into?
Right. Well, there's the massive pressure, obviously, on J.J. Abrams and the whole creative team. We need to talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll dissect some of those scenes that really stuck with people, the big moments. Plus, we have to get into the reception, the good, the bad, the really quite controversial sometimes.
The fan reactions especially.
Exactly. Both the praise and the backlash. And then sort of what it all meant, its legacy as the start of this whole new trilogy. It kicked off so much discussion, didn't it?
It really did. Still does in some corners. Okay, let's get into it. Part 1, returning to form, blending the old and new. So let's really unpack this pressure cooker situation. When The Force Awakens was announced, J.J. Abrams and his team, they weren't just making another movie. This was huge.
Oh, immense, unbelievable pressure.
They had to follow up Return of the Jedi after, 32 years? That's a lifetime in pop culture.
Right, and not just that, but they were also dealing with the shadow of the prequels, which, let's be honest, had a really mixed, sometimes quite negative reaction from parts of the fan base.
Yeah, polarizing is the polite word, I think.
Yeah.
So the expectations were just sky high. People wanted that classic Star Wars feeling back.
They absolutely did. And, to give some context, George Lucas had talked about sequels for ages, thrown ideas around, but always kind of denied he'd actually make them. Then, bam, October 2012, Disney buys Lucasfilm for over $4 billion.
Which was staggering news in itself.
Totally staggering. And suddenly, Episode 7 wasn't just talk anymore, it was happening. Lucas was involved initially, sort of as a creative consultant. He even gave them story treatments for 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Oh, I didn't realize he had full treatments.
Yeah, rough ones, apparently. But Disney ultimately decided, not to use them.
What?
Which, sources say, really disappointed Lucas. He felt he had no further involvement after that point. He even said in one interview they just wanted to do a retro movie.
A retro movie, huh?
He did apologize later for comparing Disney to white slavers in one interview, which just shows how intense his feelings were about his creation going in a direction he didn't envision.
Yikes. Okay, so with Lucas's ideas out, what was Abrams' game plan? What was the vision?
Abrams was pretty clear, actually. He wanted to go back to the roots, focus on emotion, on character, less on, say, complicated politics or overly technical stuff.
More like a New Hope's feel.
Exactly. He consciously used familiar plot beats, familiar themes. It was about capturing that sense of wonder, that emotional connection. It felt like a deliberate strategy.
Wasn't there a writer change early on?
Yeah, Michael Arndt was originally writing it, but he left. Sources suggest creative differences, maybe needing more time than the schedule allowed, so Abrams stepped in, along with Lawrence Kasdan.
Kasdan? Who co-wrote Empire and Jedi. That's a big name to bring back.
Huge. And apparently they hammered out that first draft in just 6 weeks. Literally walking around cities like London, Paris, Santa Monica, just brainstorming.
6 weeks? That's insane pressure. But maybe that energy helped.
Could be. It certainly shows the urgency, the drive to nail that specific Star Wars feel.
And that focus on roots, on emotion. You really see it in the new characters, don't you?
Yeah.
Rey, Finn, Poe. They felt new, but also familiar somehow.
That was the clever part, I think. They weren't copies, but they echoed the original trio, didn't they? Rey, the scavenger on a desert planet, finding her power, a bit like Luke. Finn, the stormtrooper who defects, finds his conscience, maybe echoing Han's journey from cynical outsider to hero.
Yeah, definitely see that. And Poe.
Poe, the ace pilot, the dedicated resistance fighter, maybe shades of Leia's leadership and daring. It gave audiences an anchor.
Right. It wasn't just random new faces. Rey's intro on Jakku, just surviving, instantly grounded her. Then she finds BB-8.
And BB-8 carrying that map fragment to Luke Skywalker. That sets everything in motion.
And Finn, FN 2187. Seeing that massacre, having that crisis of conscience, that was powerful stuff right at the start.
It really was. His decision to break Poe out, and Poe giving him the name Finn during that TIE fighter escape, it felt earned, you know? Their fates instantly linked.
So let's talk about Luke, because the decision not to have him show up until the very end, that was bold, making him the MacGuffin.
It really was bold. A MacGuffin, for anyone listening, is basically the thing everyone's looking for, the thing that drives the plot, but isn't necessarily active in the story itself, at least for a while.
And here it was Luke.
Exactly. The thinking, apparently, was that if Luke showed up early, his sheer presence, his legacy, might just overshadow the new heroes.
Makes sense. You need space for Rey, Finn, and Poe to develop for us to invest in them.
Precisely. Keep the focus on their journey, their discoveries, their relationships. It let the new generation actually be the focus of their own story. Waiting until that final dramatic scene for Luke, it just amplified the impact, didn't it?
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
That last shot. But okay, alongside the new, they layered in so much nostalgia, the callbacks, the locations, and obviously the return of the original cast. Felt like coming home for a lot of fans.
They absolutely nailed those emotional beats. Like the moment Rey and Finn find the Millennium Falcon on Jakku, just sitting there in the junkyard.
Yeah, you're like, no way.
And then they escape in it. That shot of Rey piloting it through the Star Destroyer wreckage. Pure adrenaline, pure Star Wars.
And then the moment.
Yeah.
Han and Chewie stepping back onto the Falcon.
Chewie, we're home.
Chills, just perfect. It landed exactly right.
It really did. Instant connection back to everything people loved. And it's kind of crazy remembering Harrison Ford actually got hurt on that set, right?
Yeah, the hydraulic door on the Falcon, fractured his leg. Production had to stop for a couple of weeks.
And Abrams himself apparently fractured a vertebra trying to lift it off him, kept it secret for ages, shows the intensity of making these things.
Wow, that's dedication. And then you had Carrie Fisher back as General Leia, Mark Hamill getting ready for Luke's return.
Yeah, sources mention Carrie Fisher initially pushed back against requests to lose weight, kind of staying true to herself, which feels very Leia, actually. And Hamill had a trainer and nutritionist.
And C-3PO, Anthony Daniels, was physically in the suit again.
Right. They built him a new, apparently more comfortable costume. And R2-D2 eventually waking up, bringing that final piece of the map. It felt like the whole gang was back, even the droids.
It's those details. And Abrams' push for practical effects must have helped that feeling too, right? Not just CGI everywhere.
Absolutely. That was a stated goal from Kathleen Kennedy and Abrams both. They wanted that tangible, lived-in feel of the originals. BB-8 is the perfect example.
I felt so real.
Because he was real, mostly. A physical prop developed by Sphero, operated live on set. The actors could actually react to him, makes a huge difference.
And the holochess board on the Falcon.
Stop motion, just like the original. Phil Tippett, who did the original, even supervised it. That commitment to blending practical stuff with the necessary CGI really helped recapture that authentic visual style. Some scenes even used expanded IMAX ratios, pulling you right in.
It looked like Star Wars again.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears to the new threat. All right, so the conflict. We get the First Order, clearly the successor to the Empire, rising from the ashes, wanting to wipe out the New Republic.
Right, and Leia leading the resistance against them. Pretty clear setup, good versus evil. But the really interesting part is the new face of evil, Kylo Ren.
Adam Driver was fantastic, I thought. So intense.
And such a complex villain, wasn't he? Not just this monolithic evil. He's conflicted, obsessed with Vader's legacy, but clearly struggling.
Yeah, tormented.
And then the reveal that he's Ben Solo, Han and Leia's son.
Oh man, that hit hard.
It adds so much tragedy, so much personal stake. He was Luke's apprentice, turned to the dark side, destroyed the new Jedi temple. It's devastating. Even Snoke, his master, this weird, creepy figure.
Yeah, Snoke was something else. Genetically engineered, apparently.
Yeah, the later films clarified that. But even he questions Kylo's control over his emotions, especially about Han. It hints at that internal battle.
You see that battle explode, literally sometimes,
Yeah.
like when he just loses it and smashes that console with his lightsaber.
That raw rage, it's so different from Vader's cold menace. It feels unstable, almost immature, despite the power.
There was that deleted scene, too, wasn't there, where he talks to Vader's helmet?
Yes, it's in the special features. He's basically praying to Vader's charred mask, admitting he feels the pull to the light, asking Vader to show him the darkness again. It really deepens his obsession, his internal conflict. He's trying to be dark, fighting his own nature.
Which makes him way more interesting, I think. Meanwhile, you've got Rey, this huge mystery. Who is she? Why is the Force so strong with her?
That was the central question, wasn't it? Her journey really kicks off in Maz Kanata's castle, finding that lightsaber.
Luke's lightsaber. Anakin's before him.
And touching it triggers that Force vision, that flashback. It's intense, fragmented images of her past, maybe Kylo Ren, Luke.
And didn't they use voices from old characters in that scene?
They did. Ewan McGregor recorded a line as Obi-Wan, "Rey, these are your first steps." And they cleverly mixed in archival audio of Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan and Frank Oz as Yoda.
Wow. Subtle but powerful, connecting her directly to the Jedi legacy.
Exactly. It suggests her destiny is deeply tied to the Force, maybe even by bloodline, though we didn't know how yet. And then in that same sequence, the lightsaber flies past Kylo Ren to her.
Yeah, she calls it, chooses it. That felt like a huge turning point.
Definitely. Accepting her path, embracing that power that's awakening inside her, a defining moment.
So the main plot driving all this is the search for Luke, right? He's gone into hiding after Ben Solo's betrayal.
Right. Self-imposed exile. And BB-8 has the missing piece of the map. They go to Takodana, Maz Kanata helps them out. Rey finds the saber.
And then the First Order attacks, and we see Starkiller Base in action.
Horrifying. Wiping out Hosnian Prime, the New Republic capital. Just immense destruction.
And Kylo captures Rey there, tries to read her mind to get the map.
But she resists. And then later, she escapes using a Jedi mind trick on a stormtrooper. With, like, zero training.
Which, again, fueled those how is she doing this questions.
Mm-hmm. Her power ramps up incredibly fast. Meanwhile, R2-D2 finally wakes up back at the Resistance base.
Prompted by BB-8.
Yeah, it seems like BB-8's presence in the partial map jogged his systems, and R2 has the rest of the map, so now they know where Luke is. But first, Starkiller Base.
The big assault. Han, Chewie, Finn go in to disable the shields, rescue Rey.
They find Rey, plant the explosives, and then the bridge scene.
Oh, boy. Han confronting Kylo.
Ben.
Calling him Ben, pleading with him to come home. That moment where Kylo seems torn.
Yeah, he offers Han the lightsaber. And you hope.
And then he ignites it, kills his own father. Just brutal, heartbreaking.
The look on Han's face. Harrison Ford was incredible there. And Adam Driver, too, that conflict turning into resolve. Devastating. It really lands because it's so personal. It echoes Luke and Vader, but it's Han's hope being extinguished. It cements Kylo as having crossed a terrible line.
And then Finn, seeing this, grabs the lightsaber and goes after Kylo.
Yeah, pure grief and loyalty driving him. But Kylo, even injured, is too much for him. Takes him down pretty fast.
Which sets up the final duel. Rey versus Kylo in the snowy forest.
And this is the scene that launched 1,000 debates, right? Rey, with no training, taps into the Force, pulls the lightsaber to her.
Over Kylo.
And then seemingly defeats him, or at least holds her own and wounds him further. It's visually stunning. But yeah, it raised eyebrows for some.
So what did you make of that? Her raw power there. Was it exciting? Problematic?
I think. Well, it was definitely surprising, exciting in the moment, visually spectacular. It showed her immense potential, maybe that the Force itself was awakening through her in response to Kylo's darkness.
Counterbalance.
Perhaps. But you can also see why people questioned it based on everything we thought we knew about needing years of Jedi training. Maybe Kylo, probing her mind earlier, inadvertently unlocked things. The film leaves it a bit ambiguous.
But it undeniably sets her up as a major player. Then Chewie swoops in with the Falcon.
Saves Rey and Finn, gets them out as Starkiller Base goes boom.
And that leads us to the ending.
The perfect cliffhanger. Rey, Chewie, R2 find Ahch-To, the planet, from the map. Rey climbs that island cliff.
Finds Luke Skywalker, standing there looking grizzled.
And she just holds out the lightsaber, no words.
Just the wind, the music. Incredible ending.
It perfectly set up The Last Jedi. What will Luke do? Who is Rey? All the questions left hanging. It absolutely fulfilled the mission of awakening the franchise and leaving you desperate for more.
And boy, did people want more. The box office for The Force Awakens wasn't just big, it was astronomical. It didn't just meet hype, it obliterated records.
The numbers are just wild. That first Thursday night preview, $57 million in the U.S. and Canada. That included ticket sales for marathon events, but still huge.
But IMAX alone was $5.7 million then.
Then the opening day itself, $119.1 million, biggest single day ever at the time. First movie ever to cross $100 million in one day.
Just incredible momentum.
And
the opening weekend?
$247.9 million domestically, smashed the records held by the Avengers and Jurassic World. It also set an IMAX opening weekend record.
And it just kept going, didn't it? Fastest to $1 billion worldwide.
Yep, 12 days. Fastest ever at that point, and then eventually only the third film in history to cross $2 billion worldwide. Took it 53 days.
$2 billion. Good grief.
Its final global take was around $2.071 billion, easily the biggest film of 2015, third highest grossing ever when it finished its run. And sources estimate Disney made a net profit of around $780 million. Just
wow, pure financial dominance. But you mentioned analysts sometimes put that in perspective.
yeah, just contextually. When you adjust for inflation, the original Star Wars from '77 was arguably more profitable relative to its budget and the market size then. Not to diminish Force Awakens' achievement at all, it was a juggernaut, but the business has changed.
And international markets were a bit varied.
A little. Like, it didn't do huge business in India, for example. And China was always a tougher market for Star Wars, traditionally. They really pushed the marketing hard there.
Why was China tougher, do you think? Less nostalgia?
Probably. Less cultural connection to the original trilogy compared to, say, North America or Europe. Some analysts felt that while the effects were great, maybe it lacked a certain novelty factor for audiences without that deep history. But still, it topped the international box office for 5 weeks straight, so it was definitely a global hit.
Okay, so massive financial success. What about the critics? How did they react?
Overwhelmingly positive. Really strong reviews across the board. It got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, average score 8.3 out of 10. Metacritic score was 80 out of 100, so generally favorable.
What were the main points of praise?
Critics love the energy, the action, that blend of old and new characters. They praised the performances, the visuals, John Williams' score, of course. Many felt it successfully captured the spirit of the original trilogy, which was maybe the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, phrases like nostalgic and thrilling return, shaking Star Wars from its slumber. That seems to capture it.
Exactly. Peter Bradshaw in The Guardian called it ridiculous and melodramatic and sentimental, but exciting and brimming with energy. Most critics felt it delivered what fans wanted.
But not all critics, right? There were some dissenters.
Oh, yeah. The main criticism, which echoed through some reviews and later fan discussions, was that it was too familiar, that it felt less like a sequel and more like a remake or a retread of A New Hope.
Playing it safe, essentially.
That was the argument, that it relied too heavily on nostalgia and spectacle, maybe at the expense of a truly original story or deeper character arcs for some. Some critics felt it mirrored A New Hope's plot structure very closely.
And George Lucas himself seemed to echo that retro criticism.
He did, quite pointedly. We mentioned his divorce analogy about selling Lucasfilm. He publicly criticized that retro feel, saying he always tried to make his films completely different, pushing boundaries visually and technically.
And Bob Iger's memoir confirmed Lucas was disappointed.
Yeah, Iger wrote that Lucas felt there's nothing new in the film, not enough visual or technical leaps forward. Again, it highlights that fundamental difference in vision. Lucas wanting constant innovation, Disney perhaps wanting to reestablish the familiar magic first.
It's fascinating. Okay, so critics mostly positive, Lucas critical.
Yeah.
What about the fans?
It got an A cinema score, right?
It did. CinemaScore polls opening night audiences, and they gave it an A. 96% said it met or exceeded their expectations. So the immediate audience reaction was incredibly strong.
That there was also that fan backlash we hear about.
Yeah.
How does that square? It's complex. Fandom isn't a monolith, right? While the broad audience reaction was positive, certain segments of the online fandom became very vocal with criticisms. And here, again, we need to be careful to report these viewpoints impartially, as outlined in our sources, not endorse them.
Understood. What were the main points of that backlash?
Well, one very ugly aspect, right, from the first trailer was a racial backlash against John Boyega playing Finn. Some people online actually called for a boycott, using horrific terms like anti-white or white genocide.
It's awful.
It absolutely is. And while it was likely a minority, it got significant media attention, highlighting a toxic element within fandom. Then there was the criticism aimed at Rey.
The Mary Sue label.
Exactly. A segment of fans, sometimes associated with the online group dubbed the Fandom Menace, argued Rey was too perfect, too powerful too quickly, without enough struggle or explanation, especially in that final duel.
Which ties back to those questions about her rapid Force development.
It does. And these same groups often directed anger towards Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, accusing her of pushing a forced diversity or pro-feminist agenda that they felt was spoiling the franchise.
Again, just relaying these reported viewpoints.
Correct. These differing, sometimes extreme reactions really underscore how passionate Star Wars fans are, but also how contentious things can get when you revive such a beloved cultural icon. Everyone has their own idea of what Star Wars should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But despite the controversies, The Force Awakens undeniably did its job, didn't it? It relaunched the saga.
No question. It successfully set the table for The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, both of which also crossed that billion-dollar mark. It brought Star Wars roaring back into the mainstream conversation, proving the Force was very much so this.
So after digging through all of this, the hype, the story, the reception, the box office, what stands out most to you about The Force Awakens and how it brought Star Wars back? Was it that careful nostalgia blend, the sheer financial power, or maybe those intense fan debates it sparked?
You know, I think it really was a cinematic feat in many ways. It had such a difficult needle to thread, honoring the past, satisfying old fans, bringing in new ones, setting up the future. And mostly, it succeeded. It managed to feel both familiar and fresh, and it absolutely awakened the galaxy for a whole new generation. Even with all the intense scrutiny and, yeah, the divided opinions it stirred up, it proved the hunger was still there.
Looking back now, with the whole sequel trilogy complete, and thinking about how The Force Awakens really leaned into familiarity, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is the true force that keeps a saga like Star Wars alive for so long? How much does it need to innovate versus how much does it just need to connect with those deep roots, that established feeling, to keep resonating across generations? What do you think? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.